In an article published just yesterday, a Habs reporter, Marco D'Amico, outlined 3 potential trade targets that the Montreal Canadiens could go after this offseason. We'll be breaking down each one of them and why or maybe why not the Habs should go after them in this edition of Habs Digest. Hello, bonjour, ahoy, and welcome to today's news edition of Habs Digest. I'm your host, Josh Gosse, alongside my co-host, Jesse Poirier. And a quick reminder, guys, we will be live tomorrow night during the NHL Draft Lottery, hoping to see Montreal come out on top with the Connor Bedard pick at number 1. The Draft Lottery starts at 8 Eastern. We'll be going live at 7:30 Eastern. Half an hour to talk with you guys, discuss everything, prepare, build up, and then we'll be with you right through the Draft Lottery, so you won't want to miss it. So, Jesse, this Marco D'Amico article, it was very interesting. He outlined a few guys that maybe the Habs could go after, for maybe the other teams are in a bit of a cap crunch, they're looking to offload a veteran contract, something like that. But let's just get into the first guy he mentioned, and that's Kailer Yamamoto of the Edmonton Oilers. I'll let you take it away after I outline some of the stuff that he mentioned about Yamamoto. The Oilers are only going to have about $2.8 million in cap space for next season. Yamamoto got 1 year left at 3.1, and he might be moved by the Oilers if they want to gain some cap flexibility and sign their burgeoning defenseman Evan Bouchard. Jesse, what are your thoughts on the Habs going after someone like Kailer Yamamoto, a guy who at one point was a pretty good player, but recently maybe hasn't been putting up the numbers that we would like to see?
Well, to be honest, I'm hesitant with these type of moves to begin with. They're good under certain situations. Like, of course, Montreal, we've shown that we like to use our cap flexibility. Kent Hughes, Jeff Gordon, they're smart in these type of ways. And now is the type of time to kind of be doing these type of moves when the stakes are relatively low, while still increasing, but still low all the same right now. I just don't feel like he's the player to really do this, though, because I just feel like he's not really trending in the right direction, getting those 11 goals, in that first season in 27 games. But we've seen this year even less, 10 goals in the last 53 games. So while still a young player, you want to see still kind of moving in that right direction and not kind of taking those steps back at these crucial and pivotal points in his career. So for me, it's a no on Kailer.
Yeah, I think that's fair. He's also a smaller guy. The Habs kind of go for this interesting dynamic of small and big. Someone like Cole Caufield, Brendan Gallagher, tiny guys compared to Josh Anderson, Juraj, Slafkovsky, Kirby, Dach, Cayden, Guhle, larger fellas. But, Yamamoto was a 20-goal scorer just last season, not this season. And he has the pedigree to be a very solid, middle six, probably bottom six forward for a good team. And that's kind of what he's been doing in Edmonton. But as for someone that Montreal could get on a 1 year expiring, I feel like it doesn't make much sense, because I feel like the Oilers would not be inclined to really give away much extra compensation just to get off Yamamoto's contract, and I don't think there's enough incentive for Montreal to want Yamamoto to give up anything of note for him. So I'm kind of on board with you in this deal. This one outlined by D'Amico, while interesting in theory, I feel like probably falls a bit flat in practice. Number 2, we'll talk a bit about Josh Bailey. And you guys might be saying, Josh Bailey? Oh, why would we want Josh Bailey, an old forward from the New York Islanders? Well, let's take a look. Acquiring a player like Josh Bailey would be a very similar endeavor to how the Habs acquired Sean Monahan. After the Islanders threw big money at Bo Horvat, they're going to want to improve their roster, and Bailey's contract has been a major impediment in that task over the last few years. Bailey got 1 year left after this year at $5 million. Jesse, do you see this as sort of a Sean Monahan light type option if Montreal goes after him? I'm a big Josh Bailey fan, but I don't know. What do you think of that potential fit?
We're still rebuilding, right? So these moves are kind of interesting as well if we want to end up next year in a similar position of where we're, getting high in the draft. Because to be honest, he did have a down year this year, but, great career and everything else, but definitely just his worst year since his rookie season. So definitely just, probably at that point where he's regressing, but he could serve as some great experience while still kind of being there while we're not necessarily trying to compete, but giving us that sort of experience that we need at the same time. In my opinion, I would probably pass on this move just because I feel, we should keep the vets that we do have and maybe leave a little bit more room for the younger players. But an interesting notion all the same.
Yeah, interesting notion. And again, as we take a look at Josh Bailey's stats, he's kind of a career teens goal scorer, but has kind of stepped up in some big moments, notably 13 points in 19 playoff games for the Islanders in 2020-2021. This guy has shown up in some big moments, has had a 70-point season in his career, but again, he's on the wrong side of his prime. He's 33 years old. Do you see a world, though, where, say, Montreal moves on from someone like Armia, someone like Drouin? Do you think, like, there's any world where Kent Hughes kind of does say, like, listen, it's just a one-year thing for Bailey. He's an NHL-level guy. Maybe get him back on his feet and maybe try for that Monahan thing. Since he's a healthier guy, maybe you could flip him for something at the deadline?
I'd love to have Joshua Bailey over Joel Armia on our lineup. So if we were able to do that, and that buyout that we were kind of talking about the other day gets to come to fruition, it's all kind of dependent though on where the Habs want to be, right? Yeah. And how competitive we want to be. And I don't think that we should be hasty in our rebuild. I feel like Bailey's not going to be the guy to really take us over the top, but we're going to want to really have the long-term sort of vision on this all the same. And, really bide our time. And I'm seeing, maybe the season after this one, next free agency, that's when we really go hard. And that seems to fall when there's going to be some great UFAs available as well. So great timing. Yeah,
it's very interesting. I mean, it wouldn't shock me if Montreal maybe made a call or two about Josh Bailey, because that the Islanders are looking to get off that contract. And, I mean, who knows? That Monahan deal happened. Maybe Kent Hughes can swing something else. Well, let's get into probably the most interesting one that Marco D'Amico listed, Jesse, and that's Kaapo Kakko. Now, the Habs and New York Rangers have maybe been in trade talks a lot more than we would have thought this season. There's been a lot of Lafreniere talk, even some Kaapo Kakko talk earlier in the season. But Marco D'Amico outlines it again here. He says the New York Rangers are in a tough spot. They lost their first-round matchup to the Devils. They loaded up in a big way prior to the playoffs. They were going to rival the Bruins, but came up short. They only have $11 million cap space. Vladimir Tarasenko is open to returning. Lafreniere and Keandre Miller need to be signed. Could Kaapo Kakko be the odd one out from that kid line? Could they maybe look to finally move on from him as a failed experiment? Could someone like Montreal pick him up on the cheap?
There's a lot of arrows kind of pointing to the likelihood of a deal like this. This is definitely the most probable out of all of them, given Jeff Gordon's relationship, as previous general manager of the New York Rangers. Obviously, New York is looking to make some moves as well. With this past year, have they already done, relieving their past head coach of his duties. There's a huge logjam as well in New York in terms of where Kaapo Kakko was at. So there's a big likelihood. And again, as I'll reiterate that I am sometimes a little bit suspicious of these type of moves, but he's trending in the right direction. As we've seen, he's had previous goal totals of 10, 7, and also 8 in his career so far. To be honest, he's the kind of a player that's kind of going in the right direction. And I feel like this is the type of player where he's still kind of young enough where you can really mold him into the type of player that you want. And even though it's risky, Montreal has shown that they're the type of organization that can really change a player. And I say that because that's, depending on the coaching staff, that's so dependent on the general manager's relationship with that player, development staff as well. So Montreal has shown that they are able to do these type of moves. So this one might be an interesting one.
Yeah, it's and he kind of fits the prototypical Habs build at this point. Like, you look at Slafkovsky, you look at Dach, you look at Anderson, a big forward. This guy got a howitzer of a shot. Kaapo Kakko seems to me like he's the right situation away from being a very impactful player. Now, I have seen some Rangers fans at times throughout his career question his effort. And it's something we also saw with Denis Gurianov when we traded Evgeny Dadonov for him just at the trade deadline this year. But again, Kakko's 22 years old. He's younger than Gurianov, and it feels like the kind of guy in like 2 years, he finally has a breakout season. He gets 25 goals, and you're like, wait, Kaapo Kakko's only 24? And that's the thing, coming into the league so young, just like someone like Juraj Slafkovsky, where in 5 years, people might be looking like, oh, he's only 23? Yeah, like there's your young players. They're not going to turn into superstars overnight, but under Marty St. Louis' system, which has really allowed some players who have previously struggled to thrive, I feel like it's kind of a low-risk move, but Jesse, it all depends on how much the Rangers ask for him. We've known that, he's been in trade talks for so long now, and the Rangers have never made a move. That, to me, signals that they might have a really high asking price, but do you think this summer, come time to, projecting, these extensions for someone like Miller, someone like Lafreniere, someone like Tarasenko who might want to come back, is that going to finally put enough pressure on Rangers management to pull the trigger on a Kakko deal?
Well, they're going to have to decide whether they keep Kakko or they keep Lafreniere, because I honestly don't believe it will be both. But I really feel that Kaapo Kakko will be a good NHL player. I really do feel that way. I feel like the Rangers, probably deep down inside, if If they're intelligent, they'll know that. And I would actually keep him over Lafreniere personally.
Oh.
So if we are able to kind of get him, I think just because, just like you mentioned, it's kind of low risk right now where it's a win-win in a way where if you take a flyer on him and he turns out to be a good player, well, that's great. But if not, you're still kind of rebuilding, right? And we're still hopefully aiming for another high draft pick next year. And, so him not playing the best, does kind of favor in that direction as well. And then when you really want to compete, then you really kind of address that at that point in time. So it's definitely interesting to consider this offseason.
Yeah, it is. And let us know what you guys think in the comment section on all three of these guys. Who do you think would maybe be the best fit for Montreal? Which ones do you think, maybe they shouldn't go after that? I'll also link Marco D'Amico's article in the description because all credit to him for these ideas. Like, he came up with these. We're just reporting them to you guys. So go check out his article if you haven't already. But other than that, that'll do it for this news edition of Habs Digest. Don't forget to tune in tomorrow, 7:30 Eastern, for our live stream of the NHL Draft Lottery. We hope to see you guys there. We think it'll be a lot of fun. I'm Josh Goss for my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.